How, I'm letting you be able to hear the beginning. How does Phariseeism affect lawmaking? Phariseeism is what Jesus spoke against in the Bible. So I'm giving you a prime example. I talk about drug laws, how our drug laws are messed up, and people don't like that subject, partly because of Phariseeism. They won't be practical. Okay, so here's how Phariseeism affects it all. In general, you can make good laws, like the best laws there are for for neighborly living, the best laws, the safest laws, and then Phariseeism can keep those. While you have those laws in place, it can distort the laws. The Phariseeism distorts how it's abuse. Like even in this instance of police, I'm a police supporter. I think we should have police, in other words, and I'm for encouraging them to do a good job. I'm not for people harming the police. I'm not for police harming people either, that wrongly. But the police run into bullies. They run into the people who bully everybody in the neighborhood, and they attack police, and police has to fight back. I support that. I support them fighting back, and I do. And then the media lies and acts like it's one of the friendliest people in the world that they just attacked wrongly or whatever. Anyway, but here's Phariseeism. That's not Phariseeism. I just always have to say something in the realm of reality about police, because everything basically is a lie that we hear every day about police. So Phariseeism, though, would be a police officer who abuses their power, or who not abuses it specifically. There's more descriptions of that. But directly, Phariseeism would be a police officer who got into it for the power, or got into it because they think they're better than everybody else, or something like that. That's Phariseeism, right? And you do have some police that do that, or they get into it thinking, not knowing that there's a lot of corruption and lies behind our drug laws. There's conspiracy and what you call predatory laws purposely made by scientists and higher ups. But police can't always know that. They can, because people like me can teach it. And just forget about contesting me and my qualifications. Throw that out the book. That's all baloney. That's Phariseeism too. So I have a different perspective than people. I have a talent for analysis. I have a talent for certain things, but I'm not the best presenter. Maybe I'll get better at it, but I'm not the best presenter. I already feel like I'm better right now in this video than some other videos, as far as expressing my point. So, but I'm not necessarily, I don't know if I'll improve my memory. So, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? When it comes to stuff like this, I'll tell you what I'm good at. I'm good at coming up with stuff that nobody ever noticed. All these great students and all this, they never thought of this. I come up with the idea. I'm the creator. I'm like, y'all overlook this. I'm good at seeing stuff people overlook, or the effects of it, or the fact. And part of the reason I'm good at that is because as a young child, the first thing I ever wanted to read, I think, is This Is Why. But the first thing I ever wanted to read regularly when I learned how to read was the red letters of Christ, which, it said stuff like how he talked to the woman at the well who nobody else would speak to. He talked to, he would tell people not to pray in public, like the Pharisees do in public, but to pray in secret, not to show. And he's saying, don't show off in public. And he's saying, that's Pharisees, by the way. He would tell, he said a lot of stuff, but he taught us to love our neighbors beyond actions, but in our hearts, in our minds, to exercise our minds, So I learned a lot of stuff and saw, and some of that's confusing. Love your enemies, Some of those things are confusing, but I think that I learned how to look at all sides from having early on being gravitating to that. And I've known other Christians, but they didn't gravitate to the red letters like me. And I'm kind of surprised at that a little bit, to be honest. But a lot of people, I was like, all I wanted to do is read the red letters, and I wanted to learn from the red letters particularly. And why not? That's God himself, right? In the flesh, God in the flesh. And so, But I've come up with a lot of ideas. I'm a guy that's written for a long time, come up with ideas, sent ideas to media and everything, and I've seen them use my ideas after I come up with them, all those kind of things. And I've given them to them freely. Brainstorming Bob was my nickname when I did that. I was doing all kind, and I'm good at seeing stuff that people overlook. All right. I'm good at coming up with topics that nobody's ever presented. Angles, I'm good at basketball, looking at the basketball, and I was good at Deion Sanders wasn't that well liked until a few years ago. I kept saying, y'all are overlooking Deion Sanders. Y'all are overlooking Deion Sanders. Y'all are overlooking Deion Sanders. I'm writing all the blogs and everything. And eventually they started paying attention to Deion Sanders. And the reason they overlooked him, I think, is because he dumped an ice bucket of water on a media person way back in the beginning of his football career in the NFL, the beginning of his NFL career. And I think they just started hating on him then and didn't want to give him his due respect, So I think, and then it just caught on. But the truth is, he's one of the greatest athletes of all time in modern times. The greatest athlete of all time is Samson in the Bible. He had a special gift given to him by God. And it was so he's the best athlete of all time. But no question, by far, that we know of anyway. So so back to, I'm almost forgetting what subject I'm even on in this thing. I literally am, right? Because I just did 3 other subjects. My rabbit trails are terrible. There's why I'm not a good communicator yet. But, I'm in a hurry. I got a lot of subject matter I want to get to. Lots that I was way behind on due to stolen phones and other things, right? And so I am blank. But so I don't take time to write down and do an outline and do it day by day. I try to do as many as I can anytime I have a brainstorm for it. It's Pharisee-ism. Duh. So Pharisee-ism messes up the laws. Like if I make perfect drug laws, and here they are. I did the drug laws summarized in 15 seconds. Proper drug laws. Legalize the medicinal plants that God gave us. Well, Pharisee-ism might lie and try to say which one is and isn't. They already done that. Coca leaf plant is a medicinal plant that God gave us, unless it was created more recently. But it's not a bad plant for medicinal purposes. It's a plant that's easily abused. So the coca leaf, though, you legalize it. The plant itself to put in the hands of licensed dealers. At first I said liquor store, but stores like similar to liquor stores, adult stores only, licensed dealers. Anything that's a plant, you legalize to drink it as a tea or something. So it could be new tea stores, medicinal tea stores that have to be licensed for adults only. But you still teach abstinence and stuff. So, but the point is, then you legalize, you make licensing for scientists to where they can legally make concentrated forms and safer forms. Then the written license and all that is saying you're here to make safer forms, right? That's the longer explanation that I put in the 15 seconds. And then that's to put in doctors' hands. And generally that's debatable because you could put some lower, softer of the concentrated forms into this plant places. But generally, to simplify it, you put it in the doctor's hands. And so our doctors are not very ethically smart about this stuff today. So you quit suing doctors, by the way. At this point, if you do that legally, you sue the scientist if somebody has a problem with the medicine. But you don't want to be suing all these scientists a lot because now that they've legalized it proper, then we can properly also say it's the responsibility of the consumer to use it responsibly, right? As a medicine. And not to overdose and not to mix it and all that. That's their responsibility. Especially when you get those laws straight. Now you pressure, you quit arguing we can't about drugs all the time. We can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. You legalized it all. I mean, the proper stuff, the natural medicine, you've legalized, right? So now you can crack down on the streets because they're not regulated for poison. So here's the trick. The drug cartels or somebody, anytime you legalize something, they poison one batch or something and somebody dies. And then they say, see, we can't legalize it. And they know and the Democrats are the ones that blow that up, or I guess both Republicans and Democrats do, but I would lean towards saying the Democrats do that. And because they're with the drug cartel, first of all, and they don't want money. They want all the money they get from the cartel. But so you got one person that dies. I'm not saying that's not a big deal. But you got one person that dies from, but anybody can. You can't. That's the point. You're supposed to be a responsible user of medicine. So, but anybody can die, especially if it's a poison batch. One person dies, and they won't legalize it. All right. But how many people are dying per year from bad drugs and overdose or poison? I forgot the number. But if I recall, it's 100,000 a year now. It's close to that in America. That's a lot. That's doing it the illegal way. I mean, leaving the laws that support an illegal way, too. So one person died trying to legalize not because of the drug was bad, but because somebody from the cartel likely poisoned the batch somehow. So, or somebody that inside scientist that supports the drug cartel, because some scientists make money off the cartel, but these would be licensed scientists. And you have bad scientists, but guess what? If you legalized it, they'd have to compete with the good scientists who are actually trying to make good medicines. And we have to keep telling them, make it safer, make it safer. And then there's other sides of that how do you deal with cigarettes and nicotine, and how about caffeine and coffee and all that? Those are drugs, but they're come from straight from the bean. You should put concentrated caffeine forms technically either into doctor's hands or a pharmacy. So you can do over-the-counter pharmacy is debatable with that, and even with the lower concentrated forms of things. So you get into that. But the bottom line is you legalize medicinal plants this is talking about Pharisee-ism, and I haven't forgot that at this point. But you talk about medicinal plants, and this ties into that. It's the best example. It's one of the better examples. You tie in of how people abuse good laws because of Phariseeism, self-righteousness, and not really believe. A lot of times Pharisees are not Christians and not true believers. And so they become condemning and judgmental. And we're all supposed to be able to judge. There's many verses to say to judge, but I'm judging each step I take with my feet so I don't trip in a hole. And then you also help people do that same thing. You don't want them tripping and falling. It's for protection. So you judge for protection and to gain knowledge. So the medicinal plant, you legalize. This is the 15-second part. Medicinal plant, you legalize in licensed dealers' hands. For adults only. This is the simplified version. And you also allow license scientists to work with those plants to make the concentrated and medicinal forms, and to either put in doctors' hands or in pharmacies, or both. And I say that generally you start off by saying put it in doctors' hands. But doctors today, they have hocus pocus when it comes to that too. But you quit suing doctors. Sue the scientist. But you don't sue scientists much either, because now that they've made responsible medicine, now that medicine has been made responsibly, it's up to the consumer to be responsible, and you can't blame the doctors for what you did with it. So, and you got safer forms, and you're educated. You're still taught abstinence. So that's where we've misconstrued it all and thought we're not teaching abstinence if we're promoting them to make safer forms of the medicine. It's crazy in a way, right? So it's great. How are we that dumb? But we are. But all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. That's a Bible verse. And so we're all sheep. We get led to the slaughter by lies real easily a lot of times. So but we need to stop letting lies be in our laws. So Phariseeism would take and qualify. It would still claim that we shouldn't have legalized. It would claim medicine's from the devil. God created medicine. Is the truth. God created medicine. It's not of the devil. It would mess up and say that the Bible does not allow for any alcohol use. No wine. You can't drink wines. That's not true. That's a misinterpretation of the Bible and trying to make laws, trying to create your own laws and twist the Bible into the way you want to. And it's usually by Phariseeism, because all you have to do is don't drink. And then some people make a law, if you don't drink alcohol, they're the only sinners in the world. Now I've never drank alcohol all my life. Yeah, I bet you're an a-hole. Pardon my English. That's why I didn't say the word. But these people are jerks. We'll put it like that. They're jerks all the time. Some people who've never drank a beer in their life. But they don't think there's a sin to be a jerk, because they're not being a jerk. They're trying to teach people what's right and wrong. Well, that's not actually right, because you're supposed to have the Spirit of God in you. The love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, meekness, faith, temperance, goodness, faith. Against such there is no law. So those are the fruits of the Holy Spirit, which is the opposite of Pharisee-ism. Humility. The Pharisees aren't humble. They like to make laws. They like power. So I'm going to finish this video just by simplifying it, and I can go on into explanations over and over. So I promote medicinal law. Some people think I'm wasting my time. I'm not wasting my time. Does racism still exist? Yes. With more than everybody knows, because there's white people aren't the only racist. That's the only thing we address, and we address it falsely. We don't even contest the true racist. We contest the true racist in white supremacy is actually the people lying about and calling everybody racist, calling Republicans racist, because racism is not even in the fundamentals of the Republican Party. Fundamentally, racism is supported by being Antichrist. If you're Antichrist, and the Democrats support everything Antichrist, and that's the root of racism. So they're lying. Your white supremacists are not these little gangster white supremacists, by the way. Your big white supremacists are actually the American Democrat Party and media that lies and has the drug cartel enslaving black people. And it's not just white people doing that. It's black slave masters in the Democrat Party that know what they're doing. And they're purposely enslaving the black community to the drug cartels that they bring through the Mexican drug cartels. So they've in the prison system, putting them in and out of the prison system. They've even made it popular for the gangs to go to do something that gets them put in prison to earn their stripes, and they've signed into accepting the fact that they may never have private property rights. They're not planning on it, a lot of them, but they're able to live in prison. They're able to live and still get their drugs or whatever. They're able to because they voted against the death penalty, and all those killers help smuggle that stuff in. So stuff like that can happen. I'm not saying it's always the case. So some people change. I mean, you have to leave the door open for people to change. You have to hope they do, but you have to put what do they change to? You took the Bible out. You put in Islam that lies and enslaves people, and so Phariseeism allows for false. It shakes hands with false religions, as long as you never drank a beer in your life. That's just an example. So we were all good. You're good. You're a good person. That's all religion's about. You being a good soldier. No, it isn't. You got to choose the right God. You don't choose some false God that never proved any power of life. So, and that never proved any love for anybody. Jesus died on the cross. Forgave on the cross. Knowing he had the power to rise from the dead. Knowing he had all power. He did not know he didn't have power to do it. He could have come off the cross. And he forgave and went through that pain, though. He did go through the pain. And the rejection. So, and the embarrassment. But he took on the embarrassment of everybody too. So he didn't just take on everybody's sin. He took on the shame of it, right? So, if you get the proper drug laws, then there'll be fewer people embarrassing themselves too. So because they won't be getting poisoned. Oh, so here's a point I left out. You have when they try to legalize it and they poison a batch and then say, we can't legalize now. What? But you got 100,000 people dying from poison or overdose, approximately. I think that's proper. Even if it's not, it's a huge number. Whatever it is, it's a huge number. Now, particularly, per year. That doesn't even count the shootings. Doesn't even count all the theft that you wouldn't have if you're going to the doctor. That doesn't count, or if you go to the store and get the plant and drink a tea. You're not going to have anything that's medicinal, you have to worry about withdrawals, and you don't want overhang, and so you don't want to be addicted to these things. You want to teach abstinence. But if you're doing the medicinal plant, it's much like doing coffee or something. And you have side effects to that, and a lot of people don't recognize the side effects to it. So we need to tell the truth more about coffee and tea and caffeine products too, once that's legal. So the effects of me being natural and the loving God in truth and in spirit. So what I do, I present this stuff that includes, and I forgot that point, but I'm including truth and spirit in my pursuit of truth. Truth matters. A lot of churches will teach you that my truth doesn't matter at all. And it's not my truth. It's truth. It doesn't matter. Only the biblical truth matters. No, the biblical truth is telling us to be truthful in life's matters too, and that's what I'm doing. I'm being truthful in life's matters, and that's I'm not an addition to the Bible. I'm not adding anything to the Bible. The Bible talks about controlling our appetites. It talks about taking care of our temples. I'm telling you how to take care of your body and how to get along with your neighbors and how to quit over punishing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you if you were the one caught in a fault. There's one verse that has it in that context. It's not just do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but it's also do unto others as you would have them do unto you if they were caught in a fault, and to treat them as if you would want to be treated if you were caught in a fault. Our judges, our system are supposed to do that. And if it's not doing that, it's leaning toward Pharisee-ism, which is high-mindedness and thinking they're perfect and nobody else is. No, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So one reason we're supposed to have mercy is not just because God is being merciful and giving us time to choose heaven over hell while we're alive, but we want to extend mercy so people still have a chance to choose that. But we also extend mercy because we're not perfect. He's telling us to extend mercy because you're not perfect. That could have been you that screwed up like that. You could have made that mistake, or you've made mistakes you've never been caught for. And, even mistakes, you've made mistakes. You definitely made mistakes that maybe didn't hurt somebody else. But, the things we should enforce obviously are things that do hurt other people or can hurt other people. So they should enforce against those things. And so 100,000 people, let's say 100,000 people die a year from the illegal substances. Then you got the stealing. And people losing housing. And so that's a trick, by the way, of Democrat Party that wants communism. And Republicans fall for it. And they go for it. They put people out of housing for what's equivalent to making it coffee illegal and catching them drink coffee, and you put them out of housing, ban them from housing. Then you got the libertarians and some different people that go pick on homeless people. And guess what? Go buy them a house. Just buy them a house. If you think it's so easy to get up out of the streets, you go buy a cheap shed, buy a small cheap property, and a shed, a tiny home. And not for free. Go buy them a house. Not for free. Let them pay rent. Let them rent to own. That's better. Don't just do rent. Do rent to own and do a fair price. And don't make a big deal out of every little missed payment or short payment or this and that. You're doing a service here, but why do you have to make everything perfect as is, as long as they're doing what they're supposed to do? Now, if they're not, obviously, have some leniency. But, of course, you can't let them stay if they're not doing what the agreement is, whatever the agreement is. But so if somebody breaches an agreement just a little bit, big deal. What do you want to create more homelessness? So the point is, but guess what? You're going to find out. It's not that easy to buy a cheap house like that. Today, especially with the rules, it's not that easy to get the permission sometimes to build a small house on a property. All these extra things that they can do. You had the power to do it because you have a good job and income or whatever. You're not having to recover your licenses and IDs and you have somewhere to at least put your stuff so you can get to work without being late. And so some of these people can't do that. They lose their job, and don't have transportation. But that little shed that you bought them was called a shed. Buy a shed and turn it into an apartment on a cheap property. Let them rent to own. You think it's so easy? Go ahead and do it. And so, but don't be a Pharisee, in other words. Don't be a Pharisee. Do it. You don't leave it all to the government and all the charities. Quit kicking people down. All right. So, and then the other part of that, though, is the drug issue. So they're not going to do it if somebody's on drugs and this and that, but just look at it more like coffee. But it's not coffee. It's not like coffee because when you do get drugs from the streets, you're linking yourself to killers killer dealers and stealer dealers. That's right now. That's the other part. So Pharisee-ism has allowed for the stealer, killers, and dealers and all those kind of dealers to be there, and they like it. Why? Because they could say, we're good, they're bad. We're good, they're bad. And anybody that is involved with them is bad. Even though we gave them, they're the only ones in the world that can give anybody sugar. All the people that accept sugar from them are bad people. No, they're not. Anyhow, so that's how Phariseeism can mess stuff up. And then plus it'll sentence people. It puts people out of houses and home for stuff they shouldn't be put out of houses and home for. And it stops them from being able. Overcharges them, like something that happened recently. Only people with good credit gets a discount. Well, they got good credit. They don't need a discount. They can afford what they're doing. It's the people that have bad credit that need the discount because they don't have credibility to get credit or get help and stuff. But it's a lot of times. Now, on the other hand, it's some people with bad credit are the abusive ones. But really, there's a lot of times in the poor circles, it's I'm going to go ahead and end this because I'm out of time.